On July 23, 2011, Congressman Barney Frank and Ron Paul introduced H.R. 2306, the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2011. The bill to Congress would end federal regulation of marijuana and leave it up to each state to make its own governing laws. Being that the bill would change federal regulation, it would have to be reviewed by the House Judiciary Committee, chaired by Congressman Lamar Smith. Congressman Smith said that his committee would not even consider this bill for review. When he was asked for comment on the dismissal, Congressman Smith said, "Marijuana use and distribution is prohibited under federal law because it has a high potential for abuse and does not have an accepted medical use in the U.S. The Food and Drug Administration has not approved smoked marijuana for any condition or disease. Decriminalizing marijuana will lead to millions more Americans becoming addicted to drugs and greater profits for drug cartels who fund violence along the U.S.-Mexico border. Allowing states to determine their own marijuana policy flies in the face of Supreme Court precedent." The evidence behind this statement is inaccurate and controversial, and the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2011 deserves a fair chance at becoming a law. Politicians are notorious for manipulating their words to gain public support, and this is no exception. He says marijuana use and distribution is prohibited under federal law because the Food and Drug Administration does not approve smoked marijuana for any condition or disease. The FDA has not approved smoked marijuana to aid in any treatment or disease because smoking has obvious health risks from the carcinogens produced by smoking, like carbon monoxide, not from marijuana. On the other hand, THC, a primary compound in marijuana, has been approved by the FDA for treatment in several diseases such as cancer, glaucoma, and AIDS. Marinol and Navaline are pill forms of THC. Congressman Smith goes on to say that decriminalizing marijuana will only lead to millions more Americans becoming addicted to drugs and greater profits for drug cartels who fund violence along the U.S.-Mexico border. Before I address this statement, I'd first like to point out that this is the first bill of its kind to reach Congress since marijuana was first prohibited back in 1937. It is comparable to the 21st Amendment, which repealed the alcohol ban. So if history has taught us anything, as with Amendment 21, decriminalizing marijuana will only lead to a reduced profit of drug cartels, which in turn will aid in our efforts against the violence along the U.S.-Mexico border. Apparently, Congressman Smith didn't take this into account. Next, he says, allowing states to determine their own marijuana policy flies in the face of Supreme Court precedents. This statement is based on the fact that there has been Supreme Court rulings against the nature of this bill. By changing the laws to allow states to make their own laws on the matter would contradict what the Supreme Court has already put in place. This is another widely disputed opinion. Some people, like Kevin Gutzman, a constitutional scholar, argue that Supreme Courts already give the federal government way too much power and it takes away from states' rights. There has also been several instances in the past where the Supreme Court decisions were overturned. For example, the infamous Dred Scott decision. This could very well be another instance of Supreme Court ruling that is holding this country back from progression, but we will never know unless this bill is given a fair chance. Along with Congressman Smith's inaccurate statements, it seems that he has failed to consider the opposing argument. I don't think that's very traditional for the House Judiciary Committee chairman. Congressman Barney Frank believes criminally prosecuting adults for making the choice to smoke marijuana is a waste of law enforcement resources. There was a report called The Budgetary Implications of Marijuana, written by Dr. Jeffrey Marone. He's a professor of economics at Harvard University, and the report shows how much money is wasted on marijuana prohibition. According to the report, the government spends $8.7 billion per year on the enforcement of the current marijuana policy. Additionally, the government would also stand to make as much as $8 billion per year from taxing marijuana if it were to be legalized. However, the purpose of this speech is not to gain your support in legalizing marijuana. Rather, it is to gain your support in allowing a potentially monumental bill to make its way through legislature fairly. As it stands, H.R. 2306 is being held up by a single, highly opinionated and stubborn politician on beliefs that are highly controversial, to say the least. After Congressman Smith made his irrational comments condemning H.R. 2306, several activists tried to contact him to convince him to reconsider. Instead, he ended up blocking his Facebook page of all comments contained in the matter, and he also installed an answering machine on his phone so he wouldn't have to deal with it. Congressman Lamar Smith may be the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, but he is not the only voice. There are 37 other members on the committee, several of whom may represent a district where you're from. So if you agree that marijuana can be and is used for medical purposes, if you believe that decriminalizing marijuana will help protect our country from drug cartels, and if you believe that America wastes way too much money on the marijuana prohibition, then contact your congressperson and urge them to review H.R. 2306. Thank you.